At the beginning of the film, a family was seen enjoying a dinner when a knock on the door suddenly interrupted them. Upon hearing the sound, the father went to check who was at the door so late in the night. However, as he approached, he was instantly shot and killed. Then a hitman named Rocco showed up from the door. He entered the house and began slaughtering the rest of the family members, one by one. After making sure that everyone was dead, he cut off one of the father's fingers to send it to the boss who had hired him as proof that he had done his job. Somewhere else, there was the powerful mafia boss in America called Don Lucchese, who was currently serving his time in prison. Despite being locked inside the jail, he still held the highest power and was treated like a king in there. Shortly after, one of his henchmen approached him with a bucket of ice. When he checked, he found a severed finger that Rocco had taken from the father inside the ice. It was then revealed that Rocco had carried out the murder on his order. Sometime later, Lucchese called Rocco to thank him for his good job. He then ordered Rocco to find and eliminate another man named Giovanni Manzoni and his entire family. It turned out that Manzoni was the man who caused Lucchese to be imprisoned. Back then, before Lucchese was in prison, Giovanni was once his right-hand man. However, Giovanni chose to betray him by cooperating with the FBI to uncover his crime and put him behind bars. This, of course, put revenge inside Lucchese, and he swore that he would hunt Giovanni down no matter where he was hiding. The film then moved to Giovanni, who had just arrived in France with his family. It turned out that after turning in Lucchese to the police, he realized that America was no longer safe for him and his family, so he decided to move to France. After he cooperated with the FBI, he and his family were now under the full protection of the Federals. Even several agents were stationed just across the street from their new house to ensure their safety. The next day, Giovanni and his wife Maggie were having breakfast with their two children. Their daughter, who was also the oldest, was Belle, and their son was Warren. After breakfast, they both immediately left for their first day at school in France. During the school break, Warren was sitting alone while watching a basketball game on the court when he was suddenly approached by three bullies who attempted to mug him for his pocket money. Despite facing three bigger students, he refused to give them anything they asked for, and that action led him to get beaten up.
Wow.
On the other hand, Maggie was seen grocery shopping at a local supermarket. As she waited to pay for his items at the register, the cashier and several other women began gossiping about her right in front of her in French, thinking she wouldn't understand a word. But it was a big mistake. She knew they were talking badly about her, and she was not about to let that slide. Unbeknownst to them, she took a gas canister and caused an explosion inside the supermarket right after she left.
Keep the change.
Back at the school, Warren and Belle were having lunch together in the cafeteria. Even though Warren had bruises on his face from the earlier beating, Belle seemed unbothered since this kind of incident was nothing out of the ordinary. Ordinary for them, considering that their father was once part of the mafia. Warren himself did not even mention the attack, knowing he would be able to fight back the bullies in his own way without the need for his sister's help. The siblings then discussed how different the students at this school were compared to the students at their previous schools in America. Later after school, before leaving for home, Warren met and spoke with a nerdy student. Meanwhile, a group of boys offered Belle a ride home in their car. Preferring not to walk, Belle accepted their invitation and went inside the car. It turned out that the boys didn't take Belle directly home, but instead drove her to a spot by a lake. Once there, it became clear to Belle what kind of situation she was in. Fortunately, she managed to defend herself and even stole the boys' car.
Hey boys, girls are not some toys that you fuck in the park.
Upon arriving home, neither Belle nor Warren complained to their father about everything that had happened to them at school. It was clear that both of them had inherited Giovanni's principle of handling their own problems without depending on anyone else. Later that afternoon, Giovanni was visited by the FBI handler, Agent Stansfield. Stansfield's visit was just to check on the family's security. Giovanni confirmed that the area was safe and that there had been no movement from Don Lucchese's people. Stansfield then firmly reminded Giovanni not to cause any trouble, which could potentially expose their location to Don Lucchese or his men. For a few weeks, since he couldn't leave the house, Giovanni mostly spent his time at home attempting to write his life story. He wrote how brutal his days were back when he was part of Don Lucchese's crime organization. One day, Giovanni turned on the tap and saw that the water was murky. He immediately called the local water utility to fix the plumbing. However, the water technician was rude and uncooperative, which instantly angered Giovanni. After the call, he then instructed his wife to go to the house across the street and distract the two FBI agents who were watching them, as he planned to teach a lesson to the arrogant technician when he arrived later. Knowing what her husband was about to do, Maggie quickly went to the agent's house, pretending to drop off a homemade lunch for them to keep their eyes away from her husband for a while. Soon, the plumber showed up at Giovanni's house. Once again, the man didn't show the slightest respect to Giovanni and even demanded payment, even though he hadn't started fixing the water pipe. Enraged, Giovanni grabbed a baseball bat and beat the man. Meanwhile, Maggie, still at the surveillance house, successfully distracted the two FBI agents while Giovanni carried out his brutal beating. On the other hand, at school, Warren had begun recruiting a few students who were usually targeted by the same bullies. He suggested they take revenge on those who bothered them. Initially, the students refused as they were afraid of confronting the bullies. However, Warren motivated them, even as far as guaranteeing a win against the bullies and assuring them that he was skilled in fighting. The students finally agreed, and they planned to execute their revenge after school. A few hours later, school was finally done that day, and the nerdy students were waiting for the bullies. Soon, the bully and his friends showed up. Seeing their target, Warren and the other students ambushed them from behind, beating the bullies to avenge what they had done to them. The next day, Warren and his sister Belle were eating lunch and talking in their usual spot in the cafeteria, when suddenly, Belle was captivated by a handsome young substitute teacher. Later after school, Belle boldly walked into the teacher's classroom, pretending to ask for extra lessons just to spend time with him. Then the very next day, unable to contain her attraction to the teacher anymore, Belle went back to his classroom and locked the door. She confessed her feelings for him and gave a clear signal that she wanted to make out with him. The teacher, without hesitation, complied, and they engaged in a heated moment. One day during a school holiday, Maggie hosted a barbecue party to introduce herself and the family to the neighbors. Giovanni, however, was not too into the idea, especially since many of the neighbors spoke disrespectfully to him. At one point, while he was lighting the charcoal, he became so irritated and fed up with the neighbors' words that he violently lashed out at them. Fortunately, this was just in his fantasy. Soon after, Agent Stansfield and his two FBI agents arrived, having been invited to the party. After the party, Giovanni washed the dirty dishes. At that moment, he once again noticed that the water was filthy, which sent him into another fit of rage. He immediately decided to go to the mayor's office to complain about it. There he met with an assistant of the mayor, who advised him that he should complain to the water utility office, since this was not their department. Giovanni eventually went to the water utility office. Upon arrival, Giovanni spoke with an employee who explained that the murky water was caused by a chemical factory illegally dumping its waste into the nearby river. He also revealed that the dirty water was affecting all the residents in town, not just Giovanni's house. The employee suggested that Giovanni go directly to the chemical company, as they had repeatedly warned them to no avail. Without wasting more time, Giovanni went straight to the chemical company's office that very day. There he met the company's manager and immediately complained about the constantly murky water at his home. However, the manager indifferently replied that he didn't care, as the most important thing was keeping his company running smoothly. The manager also revealed that he was paying off the mayor to ignore the issue, meaning that any complaint from Giovanni would be pointless. Hearing all this, Giovanni finally snapped. He then kidnapped the manager. A short while later, Giovanni got out of his car, revealing that he had been dragging the manager behind his car to torture the man. He then talked to the manager and demanded to know if he would change his mind and take care of the issue. The terrified manager immediately promised that from now on, the water would be clean if Giovanni let him go. Satisfied with the answer, Giovanni agreed and simply drove away, leaving the badly injured manager there. The scene then shifted to Warren in his classroom. At that moment, his teacher approached him and asked why he had not submitted his assignment yet. Warren immediately apologized and promised to complete it immediately. The teacher then reminded him that the assignment was to write a short but profound sentence that would be printed in the school newspaper and would later be widely distributed to the public. Upon hearing that, Warren quickly grabbed his pen and thought about what to write. While racking his brain for an idea, he suddenly remembered a phrase his father would often hear during his weekly parties with Don Lucchese, the mafia boss. Lucchese had this one specific saying in English saying, "If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me." Warren quickly wrote this down as his assignment. After the assignments were collected, the school proceeded to print the students' sentences in the newspaper for public release, and somehow one of the newspapers managed to reach America. A week later, Don Lucchese was talking inside his prison cell when a guard brought him a special wine from France. The wine bottle was wrapped in a piece of newspaper. Lucchese then poured his drink, and a moment later he grabbed and casually read the newspaper that was used for wrapping. He was utterly stunned to see a familiar quote in the paper. It was his own personal saying. It was the same single newspaper that somehow landed in America. He immediately realized that those words were only known to Giovanni and his family, which meant Giovanni was currently hiding in France. He finally had an idea of where to find his target. The next day, Don Lucchesi called his hitman, Rocco, and showed him the newspaper, informing him that Giovanni and his family were in France. He then instructed Rocco to trace the newspaper's origin, assuring him that Giovanni would be there too. He once again ordered Rocco to immediately massacre Giovanni and his entire family, as that was the proper punishment for a traitor. Upon understanding his mission, Rocco left to prepare for his flight to France. Elsewhere, Belle was on the phone with her teacher, or perhaps boyfriend, since they had officially been in a relationship after the day they made out at school. During the call, the teacher apologized and informed Belle that he was going to leave her. He had to go abroad for graduate studies to pursue his long-term career goals. Hearing this news devastated Belle so much, and she broke down in tears. Later that afternoon, Giovanni was seen with Agent Stansfield. He invited Stansfield to the movies, explaining that staying home all the time had made him bored to death. Stansfield somehow agreed, and the two men left for the cinema. Later that day, as evening fell, Warren was sitting alone at the train station when he suddenly saw Rocco and several other men coming out of the train that stopped. He instantly recognized them and knew that they were there to hunt his family. He rushed to the nearest payphone and tried to call home to warn his family that danger was coming after them, but unfortunately no one answered his calls. Somewhere else, Belle was standing on the roof of a building near the police station. She was threatening to jump and commit suicide unless her boyfriend agreed to take her abroad with him. At that very moment, she noticed a car stop by the front of the police station, and some people in black, who turned out to be Rocco and his crew, came out of the car and entered the station. They then began slaughtering the police officers inside the station. One of Rocco's men hacked the station's computer system to find Giovanni's family's address. After securing the location, Rocco and his crew immediately left for the house. Belle, upon witnessing the attack, abandoned her suicidal intention and rushed home to warn her family. Meanwhile, Giovanni and Agent Stansfield had just finished watching the film, and Stansfield drove Giovanni home. Upon arrival, Giovanni looked for his wife and children, but they were nowhere to be found. It turned out Maggie was at the FBI surveillance house across the street with the two station agents, while Warren and Belle were still on their way back. Maggie was about to head home when she found out that her husband had just arrived. However, after only a few steps, she was startled by the presence of Rocco and his entire crew in front of her house. She immediately rushed back into the FBI house and warned the two agents that a gunfight was about to begin. At that moment, Rocco and his crew approached Giovanni's house in the FBI surveillance house across the street, fully armed. Fortunately, Giovanni's family dog started barking continuously, alerting Giovanni to the approaching danger. Unexpectedly, one of Rocco's men fired an RPG at Giovanni's house and instantly blew it up. Maggie was devastated to witness what had just happened, thinking that her husband was done for. Next, one of Rocco's crew entered the FBI house and quickly killed the two FBI agents inside. Maggie somehow survived the bombardment, but the hitman realized it and soon found her. He was about to do the unthinkable to her. Just as the hitman started to unbuckle his pants, Giovanni, who had miraculously survived the explosion, suddenly attacked him. The scene shifted outside, where Belle and Warren had just arrived. The brave siblings managed to steal weapons from their attackers and joined the fight against the remaining members of Rocco's crew. After a tense battle, only Rocco was left standing. Unfortunately, he managed to corner both Belle and Warren. They were ready to face death in front of their eyes when, suddenly, Rocco's gun ran out of ammunition. Belle immediately took advantage of the distraction and fled, with Rocco right behind her, trying to catch her. During the chase, Belle was nearly caught, but suddenly a speeding car crashed into Rocco. The driver turned out to be Agent Stansfield. In the end, Giovanni's family was safe, while Rocco and his men were all killed. However, as long as Don Lucchesi remained alive, Giovanni would never find peace, no matter where he hid.
We used to run New York. Now we run the grill at 5 o'clock. Witness protection, white picket fence, but we still pack heat behind the garden bench. Yo, dad got a bat, mom got a pan, both dangerous depending on the plan. They said we're normal suburban folks, but every family dinner ends in mob jokes. Moved to France, new name the Blake, but old habits, man, they hard to break. PTA meeting, yeah, we show up late, cause we were cleaning up a business debate. We the fam, mafia in disguise, barbecue smoke while the bullets fly. Keep it your smile, stay polite, but don't cross us after midnight. Yeah, we the fam, suburban kings, running errands like it's gangster things. We bake lasagna, water the lawn, then hide her body before dawn. Sis got charm, she flirts with brains, got straight A's and criminal gains. Lil bro hustle lunch money flow, selling homework to the neighborhood, yo. Mom's a chef, burns nothing but lies. Dad reads papers, just alibis. The dog got PTSD, many knows. Every time we move, the witness blows. We the fam, yeah, we don't lie. Just relocate, every time. FBI on speed dial, yeah, that's true. They fund our rent and our barbecue too. We the firm, suburban dreams, running them up with lemonade schemes. Smile wide, act clean, still the baddest crew you've ever seen.